Previously on the Sunnydale Ranger. Buffy, Xander, and Willow were at the new shop in Sunnydale for Halloween costumes, Ethan's. Buffy and Xander got the costumes they wanted, but Willow was convinced to get something else instead of a ghost costume. She picked up a badge, belt, and a toy shotgun from a bin containing various knickknacks. The badge was from a cancelled live-action show called The Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers. That night, while chaperoning children during their trick-or-treat walkabout, a mysterious spell activated. One that made people become whatever costumes they were wearing. Willow was about to faint when she saw her charges become demons. And before they could hurt her, Willow pressed her Galaxy Rangers badge and somehow threw them to the house next door. And then she lost consciousness. And now, the continuation. Unknown home, Sunnydale. Niko's head was throbbing as she slowly opened her eyes to find herself looking at the world sideways, her cheek lay on warm concrete. She groaned, scrunching her face before getting up on her elbow, then reaching for the railing above with her free hand. Slowly pulling herself up, she stood on trembling legs. She still felt dizzy. Holding the railing with both hands, she took several deep breaths until she managed to center herself. Then she straightened up, taking off her hat and rubbed her forehead as the throbbing eased away. "My implant," Niko whispered, the pain in her head dulling. It felt the same as when the Series 5 device was first surgically implanted into her brain. She closed her eyes and wiped the gathered tears. Confused, she looked at the wetness on her fingers, and it was then that she looked down at herself and noticed that she was out of her white and blue Ranger uniform. Instead, she was wearing jeans, a plaid shirt, and then she noticed the white cowboy hat. She then stared at her badge with a confused expression. It looked as brand new as the day she became a Galaxy Ranger. She then twisted her body and looked down at the energy shotgun on her left hip holster. She was out of uniform and wearing her energy shotgun. That wasn't protocol. What's going on? Niko wondered. She looked around, her confusion increasing, and noticed the houses across the street. She then turned and glanced at the house, of which porch she was occupying. Shaking her head with her eyes furrowed in confusion, she tried to think of where she could be. Niko turned and stared out at the street again. "Is this Earth?" whispered Niko to herself as she rushed down the stairs and onto the walkway which cut through the front lawn. There was a gentle breeze brushing past her while she whispered, "Has to be. But where am I on Earth? Where are the others?" Niko needed to reach out to her fellow Galaxy Rangers, hoping maybe they had come to a planet that looked surprisingly like Earth on the orders of Beta, the Bureau of Extraterrestrial Affairs. She looked down for her wrist communicator, but it wasn't on her. "I always have it with me," said Niko to herself as she walked down the walkway to the pavement. "This is really odd." There was a strange feeling in the pit of her stomach. Stopping, Niko stared down both sides of the street before closing her eyes and concentrating. A latent psychic since she was born on the world known as Elspeth, Niko was one of a few survivors following an attack on her world which killed her parents and most of her people. She was found, and then taken away to the Haven world known as Xanadu by Ariel, a powerful mystic who became her teacher. And it was on that world where Niko was trained, and nurtured, in using her already considerable psychic gifts. Now, as she stood with her eyes closed, and with slow and gentle breathing, Niko used her training with Ariel in mystics to confirm a theory for this strange feeling within her. The mystic forces here are great, thought Niko to herself as she slowly opened her eyes and looked around again. Is this a trick? Mystical forces like this were never detected on Earth. If it had been, then Ariel and the Circle of Thought would have made sure to keep an eye on it. The magic was all-encompassing. She felt it brushing against her cheek, traveling through her. Traveling around her. Niko wondered, I can feel it everywhere, permeating through me. The trees, the soil, what's going on? If this is Earth, then where am I? It was then that Niko heard screams in the distance followed by weapons fire. She narrowed her eyes to look through the available light from the street lamps. She could see people running away from what seemed like short, grunting, dwarves with horns on their heads. "That's something you don't see every day," whispered Niko as she reached for her weapon, her ranger training taking over. She slipped the energy shotgun out of its holster. She was about to run and help that poor soul when she heard a guttural roar from behind her. She heard thuds, the sound of feet impacting the ground. Something was running towards her. Niko turned sharply, bringing the weapon up at the same time. Niko's eyes widened in shock at the large, dark-furred creature with claws running towards her. She could see the green eyes and sharp teeth that glistened under the street lights as they came at her fast. Niko had no choice but to fire her weapon at the creature. However, there wasn't a blast of plasma energy. No, there was nothing but the sound of a loud bang and bright flashes of light which left the creature stumbling back. "What the?" thought Niko, glancing down at the double-barreled weapon in her hands when the creature growled again. She then looked up, away from her weapon, and saw the creature baring its teeth, flexing the claws it had for hands. Niko could try and run, but she was fairly certain the creature would quickly catch up to her, and then injure her. Possibly kill her. And with the intense mystical forces she could feel around her, Niko didn't want to use her Series 5 implant to boost her powers until she knew what was going on. At least until I absolutely have to. "Young lady," yelled a woman's voice from her right side. She glanced at the house where she woke up. There was an old woman standing at the half-opened front door. She was aiming a gun with two trembling hands, pointed at the creature. Niko saw the wolf-like creature look at the woman, and then at Niko, and then at the woman again. Growling, the creature took a step towards Niko just before a shot rang out. Niko jumped back as the round impacted the pavement in front of her. The creature then growled at the older woman, staring her down. "Shut the door," Niko yelled. She used the distraction by the gunshot to perform a jumping roundhouse kick directly into the creature's snout. The ranger landed onto the ground, then, in a fluid motion, while the creature was holding onto its snout and roaring in pain, Niko flipped the shotgun in her hand. Gripping the barrel with both hands, she used it like a bat, smashing the entire side of the stock into the forehead of the creature. Niko then rushed towards the porch while the creature stumbled onto the lawn, rolling on the grass while wailing in pain. She rushed to the woman and told her to get back into the house and lock her doors. "Do you have a basement?" asked Niko. "Yes," said the elderly woman. Her hands were still trembling, her fingers gripping the gun. It was still pointed at the creature which was thrashing on the lawn in pain. "Get in there, ma'am," Niko calmly said when she saw the woman's trembling hands. "Lock your front door, lock your basement door. This thing's mad at me, so if it happens to get up again, it'll follow my scent. I'll send some rangers to help you once whatever this is over." "What rangers? Are you talking about the Texas Rangers?" "This is California, my dear," the older lady pointed out. Niko noticed the confusion in the old woman's voice when she mentioned the word, Rangers, and thought to herself, what the heck am I doing in California? I should be in Beta Mountain, or at least in the... Wait a minute. Amongst the screaming and thrashing creature that was rolling on the grass as it grabbed its head with its claws, Niko looked around again and then noticed the revolver in the old woman's hand. She didn't recognize the design, maybe old school. She then noticed there were no droids. Usually there would be security droids for even the quietest of neighborhoods. And the whole time she had been here, there had been none. And with the loud noises the creature was still making, a security droid, a floating one, would have been dispatched. A thought came to her. It was a leap, After all, there could be some places on Earth that rejected modern technology, right? Niko turned towards the old woman and asked, "Ma'am, what year is this?" 1997, said the woman as Niko looked on in shock, just before she heard weapons fire in the distance. Turning towards the weapons fire coming from the left side of the street, the red-haired Galaxy Ranger told the elderly woman to get into the house and lock everything tight. She told the woman law enforcement officials should come by as soon as possible. And, please forget that I was ever here, asked Niko as she started to run. If this was the past, then Niko did not want to advertise her presence. Who knows what impact this information could have on the future? The elderly woman saw the redhead take off, and then she saw the creature whimpering as it lay on its back, breathing on her lawn. Locking the door, she then ran into the house and went into the basement, locking the door behind her. Niko continued running as she thought about her predicament. I'm in the past, Niko thought to herself as she witnessed several other smaller creatures chasing others who were dressed strangely. It's like one of those old movie sets. I need to get back. And that means I can't ask for help from any authorities. They can't know about my Series 5 implant. If they do then I'd have changed my future. I need to find out what's happening and then hide out and hope that Waldo, Zachary, Goose and the others find a way to bring me home. But one thing that bothers me is this mystical energy. I haven't read anything about this in Earth history. Maybe that's a question for another time. Niko ran as fast as she could when she suddenly stopped when lights from behind lit the roadway next to her. Turning around, Niko saw a car whiz by. With two creatures jumping on the roof of the car, the driver's face full of fear. Amazing, internal combustion engine automobiles, whispered Niko as the car made a left turn onto another street. Don't see things like that after moving to hydrogen fuel cells. Niko began running once again towards the sounds of weapons fire. It was a few minutes later that she saw a man in a green uniform firing at what can only be described as small snarling demons. There's something you don't see every day, said Niko as she reached for her weapon, but then stopped. She didn't want to show her energy weapons to anyone, not since she discovered that she was in Earth's past. Then she recalled, this isn't an energy shotgun anyway. And that was strange. She wasn't in her uniform, she didn't have her energy shotgun, and she was in the past. How was any of that possible? But those could be answered at another time. Instead, Niko ran as fast as she could, intending to use her training in martial arts to good effect. However, the man firing the weapon managed to drive them off without the demons getting hurt, especially since the weapon just gave off lights and sounds. That was interesting, yelled Niko as the man turned and aimed the weapon at her. Niko stared at the weapon and thought, an M16 rifle, the old US Army issue, amazing. The things I could learn here. Wow, but, stop Niko. Getting home is the first priority. Niko raised her arms into the air while the soldier aimed his weapon at her, asking her who she was. My name is Niko, I'm a ranger. Texas Ranger, asked the man as he looked at the shiny badge on the red-haired woman's belt, his weapon still pointed at her. Special Projects Division. Technically speaking, lied Niko as she glanced at the identification patch on the soldier's breast pocket. What's your name, Private? Just Private Harris, said the man while Niko looked on. Okay Private Harris, Niko said, I'm putting my arms down now. I'm stuck here just as you are. Meaning I've got no idea what's going on. Neither do I, said the man when Niko noticed a dark-haired woman walking behind the private. She looked confused, as if she didn't know where she was. What made Niko confused was the dress that the young woman had been wearing, a red, frilly dress that looked as if it belonged in the 17th or 18th century. Niko nodded towards the young woman, which made the private turn around and stare at her. "Miss?" asked Niko, cautiously approaching the frightened woman whose eyes widened in fear. She was staring at something behind both her and Harris. The woman screamed just as Niko turned around to see three monsters rushing towards them. The scream was soon followed by a gasp, and a thud. Niko turned to see that the young woman was lying on the ground unconscious after she fainted. Rolling her eyes, Niko turned towards the monsters and saw the soldier fire off a few rounds. Once again, she noticed the weapon made the sounds and muzzle flashes of an M16, but there were no real rounds coming out of it. Just like what happened earlier with her own energy weapon. But it did scare the other creature, or at least distracted it a little, thought Niko as she took out her shotgun and stood next to the private. These weird demon-looking things are smaller. So I hope they're not as brave as the other large furry thing that attacked me. Niko pressed the trigger a few times as loud booms and flashes of light appeared in conjunction with the weapon's fire from the private's weapon. In a few seconds, the creatures ran off frightened. And the two uniformed individuals lowered their weapons. "Dang," Harris said, eyeing the energy shotgun, "that's some kinda experimental shotgun." "You could say that," said Niko as she holstered the weapon before turning around and running to the collapsed young woman in the red gown. She asked Harris to help her lean the dark-haired woman against a nearby tree. Once they had done so, she tapped the young woman's shoulders, all the while wondering why anyone in their right minds would be wandering around in that gown in 1997. Miss, are you all right?" Mumbled the young woman, who groaned while moving her head side to side along the tree trunk. "Do you know where you are?" "Estate," she mumbled before opening her eyes and staring at Niko. She gasped, and then turned to Harris, and gasped again before, with panic in her voice, saying, "Where am I? Who are you people? What year is it?" asked Niko staring at the young woman. "To you, what year is it?" "Women don't wonder what year it is," said the young woman while Niko shook her head and then, while crouched, looked up at Harris and asked what year it was for him. 1971, the private replied as Niko sighed, and then looked at the young dark-haired woman who was looking back at Niko, and then at the private, and then back at Niko. She looked as if she was about to cry. "He can answer," Niko gently said, staring at the young woman, "so can you. Now, please tell me what year is it?" "Fine," pouted the woman, "it's 1775. "Thank you," said Niko as she stood up, after which the ranger helped the dark-haired young woman up to her feet. Three people pulled out of their own time period, thought Niko to herself. Why? What's so important about this time? Does it have something to do about this mystical force that I sense throughout this place? Did someone in my time do something? No, can't be, because then why are these two here?" "Your dress," said the young woman as she looked at Niko and what she was wearing, "it is so strange. How did I come to be here?" "I don't know," answered Niko. "How about you?" asked the private looking at Niko. "Where are you from?" 1986, Niko lied. She did not want to tell them that she was from the late 21st century. "So, all of us are from different years," said the private, "and not one of us knows what the heck is going on. Or why we're here." "Demon, demon," yelled the dark-haired woman as Niko and the private took out their weapons, turned, and then immediately put them away. There was a car driven past them. Frowning, the private looked at the panicking young woman and shook his head. "She never saw a car before," said Niko as she put the weapon back in her holster and walked towards the frightened woman. "There's nothing to be scared of, miss. What do I call you? What's your name?" I was called the Duchess of Buffonia from the land of Buffdom, the woman answered as Niko stared at her with an eyebrow raised. Miss, said Niko, during my training to become an archaeologist I've taken history classes, and I can tell you, I've never come across anyone by that name or that place. That is who I am, the woman said, appearing insulted. Does it matter if you have heard of me? Or where I'm from? I guess not, said Niko, shaking her head before looking around. We can't stay here, it's too open. We need someplace to hide out while we make a plan. 4. Ask the private. Finding out who brought us here. To this place, said Niko, and why? All these houses are occupied, said Private as he looked at all the homes, but I doubt they'd let anyone in, especially with what's going on. And we can't go into each house and ask for help in case some of these things come after us. I mean, we could force ourselves inside and then we find some place empty, Niko said, shaking her head. Private, you take point. I'll stay with the Duchess. Yes, said the dark-haired young woman, nodding her head. She then grabbed a hold of Niko's arm. It isn't our duty to fight. We have a strong man to protect us. Niko glared at the woman, and then at the private, and back at the woman again. Niko then shook her head to clear her mind. This is going to be really interesting, thought Niko to herself as she walked with the Duchess, who was holding onto her arm tightly. They could hear screams in the distance, as well as windows breaking, for the next 10 minutes as they continued to walk cautiously. Creatures would be chasing others, but were mostly avoiding the three of them. Eventually, Niko and the others came to a row of dark houses that they hoped were empty. The private tried to open one of the front doors just as he heard a scream from behind them. Buffy, yelled out a woman dressed as a cat who was at another house down the road when she ran as fast as she could towards them. Thanks to the bright street lights, Niko could see that the woman was being chased by something that should not exist. Niko had only heard stories, old Earth legends, and conspiracy theories of the creature chasing the woman. She had also seen artists' renderings. But there was never an actual picture of the creature. It was a Sasquatch. The woman was being chased by a Sasquatch. Buffy, yelled the young woman as she ran towards them. Niko and Harris raised their weapons while the Duchess cowered behind a tree. Get down, yelled Niko as the woman, dressed as a cat, swerved to one side in shock upon seeing the weapon held up by the redhead. Niko and the private then pressed the triggers of their respective weapons, hoping that the intense lights and sounds would scare the creature off. They continued depressing the triggers and watched in disbelief as the creature covered its ears and closed its eyes. It howled in pain before turning around and running away. Willow, said the young woman who stood up after she dived onto the grass, and then looked at her torn sleeve before complaining, the sleeve's torn, damn it. There goes my deposit from Party Town. Did you just call me Willow? Asked Niko, confused. That's your name, said the cat woman. What? You got amnesia all of a sudden. Xander, Buffy, back me up here, the young woman said as she stared at the confused faces of the other two. Oh, come on. I know we're not that close, and I'm not really with the whole weird stuff that you people have going on, but still. Guys. Who's Xander? Asked the private. What kind of a name is Buffy? Asked the Duchess. Thank you, said the cat woman staring at the Duchess. You know how long I've wanted to ask that question. Miss, said Niko as she holstered her weapon, why did you call me Willow? I don't know what joke you guys are playing with me, said the woman as she looked at Niko's dress, or why you're dressed as a cowgirl for Halloween. I mean, you couldn't have picked a weirder costume or Halloween, asked Niko. You mean the day when people dress up in costumes and have Jojo the dog-faced boy run after you? asked the woman as she pointed at the Sasquatch that was running away. I mean, it doesn't happen a lot, but after seeing what you guys see, I'm not really surprised about the weirdness. But still, pretending you're not Willow just to show me what kind of a bitch I can be is kinda uncalled for. I am telling you the truth, Niko clarified. My name is Niko, I'm a ranger with. Look, I know this is unbelievable, but we've been taken from different points in time and. Enough with the jokes, the woman interrupted. You know me. You know, Cordelia, the Cordettes. Their leader. You remember? No, said all three of them together. Willow, Cordelia said, her face taking on a more concerned expression. She knew the three of them didn't like her that much, but to continue this kind of a charade would be cruel, even for them. She then looked at Niko, then Harris, and finally she stared at the Duchess. You don't remember me? Xander, Buffy, remember your first day at Sunnydale High? Do you remember the whole fighting darkness with Giles thing? Huh, asked the Duchess. Cordelia, said Niko gently, I can tell you that I have no idea who you are. I don't know this Willow person either. Maybe we look similar and you've mistaken me for her or. We need to see Giles, said Cordelia, her gaze sweeping over everyone. You guys deal with all this weird stuff so he's the one who can help. All right, Niko said, nodding her head, take us to this Giles person. To be continued.